There was another boy who also lived in Minnesota, Mark James Warren Allen. Mark was born on May 13th of 1972 and was 13 years old when he went missing. Mark Allen's mother described him as a handful who was very close to his sister and brother and wanted to be around them all. So Mark had moved out of his father's house in Minnesota and back in with his mother in Des Moines, Iowa. So on March 29th of 1986, Mark went missing. He had said that he was going to walk over to a friend's house and that they might go see a movie and to save him some pizza for when he got home. Sadly, Mark would never make it to his friend's house. It wasn't until the next morning that his mother realized he hadn't returned home. Now, this would have been the day before Richard Chaddock was discovered in a field. Now, I'm not sure which city in Minnesota Mark's father lived in then, but it kind of begins to establish a connection. And now here's where it gets off. 2 other boys were also abducted in Des Moines, Iowa. These 2 boys were Johnny Gosch and Eugene Martin. Now, Johnny Gosch was taken in 1982 and Eugene Martin in 1984. But both boys were newspaper carriers right around the same age. And again, they both lived in Des Moines, Iowa, and were taken under similar circumstances. So Eugene, just like Mark, was 13, and so was Johnny Gosch. Eugene was born August 17th of 1970. Eugene was abducted August 12th of 1984. So Johnny Gosch was born November 12th of 1969, and he was taken September 5th of 1982. Coincidentally, none of the boys were ever found. There's kind of an alluding to a possible police cover-up in the case, or in all 3 cases, actually. The parents themselves had to organize the searches. Also, somewhere I saw speculation that the police had actively impeded one of the searches. Nearby there was an abandoned barn. At least one of the boys had been, and he didn't want them found. And so this is where it gets kind of strange again, because in the Johnny Gosch case, a young man from Omaha came forward and said that he was coerced into participating in Johnny's abduction. Now, this was about 9 years after Johnny went missing. The investigator who was investigating, he and his young son actually died in a mysterious plane crash on their way back to Nebraska from a baseball game in Chicago. Now, the plane went down in Ashton, Illinois. And here we have another interesting twist. The original police officer who should have been investigating Johnny Gosch's disappearance had actually left Des Moines and had taken a police officer position in Ashton, Illinois. And so there's kind of a whole big backstory to all this. But before I get too and fall down the rabbit hole, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit and look a little more closely at the Johnny Gosch case. Now, mostly I'm going to do this because there's just so much more information. Johnny's mother has actively kept the case going, continued to investigate, bring as much media attention as she could over the years. And it has been 38 years, so there's just a ton of information out there. So we're going to go ahead and focus a little bit more on Johnny for that reason. And then we'll look a little bit more into the witness. There's also another case that seems it may be related to the Richard Chaddock case. So I'll be looking at that as well, and I'm not sure in which order this is really going to flow best, but those will be separate episodes. Okay, so when Johnny Gosch disappeared, he was delivering papers. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and there were, I guess, a group of 3 paper boys and 1 adult in the area. Now, I guess Johnny had loaded up his papers first, is the impression that I got, because he had started to walk away, and 2 other boys were going the opposite direction, and they got their papers and came back in the same direction Johnny had gone, and he wasn't there anymore. So witnesses said that they heard a car door. One of them apparently looked out the window and saw a vehicle, if I'm getting the story straight. So another, I believe it's an eyewitness account, said that this car had gone by once and then circled around and came back and had been asking Johnny for directions. So Johnny called the adult over, who I guess was like their boss from the newspaper company. He called him over and said, "Hey, can you help this guy?" And the car sped off. So at some point, the car was seen reversing back to where Johnny was. They saw someone come out of the bushes on foot, walking towards Johnny. Now this was he said, a tall, thin figure dressed in dark clothing. So right around the same time is when the car reversed and backed up and stopped where Johnny was. The next thing anyone saw was just the abandoned wagon full of newspapers, and also Johnny's dog was left at the scene. But despite all of that, a police officer concluded he had run away, which is basically the same thing they said in the Eugene Martin case and in the Mark Allenn case. Now, years ago, I saw a video someone made with speculation about Johnny Gosch's case. So it mentioned the police officer, and his name was Gene Lutz, and this would be the same one that ultimately moved to Ashton, Minnesota. Now, according to the source, he had been talking to Johnny at a baseball game, and I guess he kind of pulled him aside near the bleachers and encouraged him to, be a big boy, and you should be delivering the papers yourself. You shouldn't have to have your parents go with you or whatever, according to the documentary. So that's kind of strange, but it seems that Johnny took that to heart, and so Johnny had asked his mother if he could please deliver the papers himself without his dad the next day. The mom said no, but Johnny's father apparently thought the mom had said yes. The father's alarm, I think, was turned off, which is kind of odd, according to one of the videos. Now, some of these can't be corroborated, so I just want to throw that out there. But it does seem that was the case because the father was not present, and typically he would have been, so I guess he overslept. But now there was some speculation in one of the videos, and that he really set him up to be alone that morning. But so as I researched this case, and it's been off and on over a number of years, and I found some very strange theories out there, and also some more detailed information from Johnny's mom. And I'm just going to interject here for a minute, because I'm posting this picture, and I know it's horrific, but I guess there were multiple images found that they believe to have been Johnny. Now, some of the images were later identified to be 3 boys from Florida, but there were other images. Now, to me, this looks like the same child. Maybe lost some weight, looks a little tanner. Also looks like maybe a black eye. And I think it's important because this would suggest that perhaps Johnny was trafficked. So it was suggested that Johnny's dad was kind of being very mysterious around this time. It said Johnny's dad frequented gay bars in Omaha. There was kind of an indication that perhaps he actually sold Johnny into this child trafficking ring. It seems at some point Johnny snuck to the house and did meet with his mother for about an hour or an hour and a half. I think it was about 10 years approximately after Johnny had gone missing. I'm pretty sure he was an adult at that point, though, so it's quite a number of years. He came late at night and then left very quickly. He asked his mother not to tell anyone that he was there. He did give her some information about what had been going on. But it said he was very vague about that, which I can understand. And the way she puts it is that, A, it's for his safety and hers, and B, that's his mom, so he wasn't quite comfortable sharing a lot of the details. She said perhaps a little embarrassed. I also read that heard that there were threats made toward her. And I don't know, at what point in the timeline this occurred. If it was, after she started putting some things together and someone didn't like it. But it said that she had moved into an apartment and people were leaving dolls in the hallway and implying that, hey, you better be quiet, kind of threatening her life, basically. And it's kind of gross. So it's pretty morbid, so I'm not going to go really into a lot of detail on that. So that's what I have about the actual disappearance. And I'm going to looking into the case about the witness and then also into another case that seems may be connected to the Richard Chaddick case. So those will be coming up. So as always, thanks for watching. Good night and God bless.